Good evening. Tonight we're going to talk about a very delicate subject of gossip. And subtitled, A Wound That Cuts Deep. One of those sermons here we are on a Sunday night. Go through a little sermon from the book of Proverbs. Proverbs, well, not just from the book of Proverbs, but dealing with gossip on a level of just kind of reminder of what gossip is and what it can do. Proverbs 26, verse 20 through 22 says, For lack of wood the fire goes out, where there's no whisperer, quarreling ceases. As charcoal to hot embers, and wood to fire, so is a quarrelsome man for kindling strife. The words of a whisperer are like delicious morsels. They go down into the inner parts of the body. Notice that verse 22 again. The words of a whisperer are like delicious morsels. They go down into the inner parts of the body. Two people were one time talking, and of course, it's two ladies, and after a lengthy monologue by one of them, the other said excitedly, "Oh, tell me more!" To which the other lady said, "I can't tell you anymore. I've already told you more than I heard." Well, we've probably all, when we were younger, played the telephone game, how that you start one area, go around whispering to one another and find out how the story changes throughout to get to the other side. And sometimes that's how gossip is. The further it goes along, it gets changed, things get added, things get removed, and lots of times it just gets juicier as it goes. But gossip is defined as idle talk or rumor, especially when it's about personal or private affairs of others. That's not the sole province of the female gender. Lots of guys gossip too. But it's particularly troublesome for women because of the way they're hardwired. Women are the communicators, right? Oh, you're not going to agree with me on that. But we talked about the long-term difference between men and women, but both have the problem, okay? I say problem, it occurs in both. It's talk, whether true or false, about a person that shows the person in a less positive light. There are times, of course, when the truth about others, however harsh, must be shared with third parties. We'll discuss that later. Sometimes people have to vent. We understand that too. Sometimes people have to discuss things that are going on. Nevertheless, we should always exercise great care in talking to someone else about a person who's not present. So, having introduced that, gossip is a wound that cuts deep, and for all intents and purposes, gossip is nothing more than slander. But if we go back and really examine the word on a biblical basis, the Hebrew word for slander simply means a bad report. A bad report. It's what Joseph gave to his father Jacob about his brothers in Genesis chapter 37 and verse 2. Remember, Jacob would send his sons, 10 of his sons, out to tend the sheep. And he'd give them instructions what he wanted them to do, where he would want them to take the sheep, take them over here for a while, and then take them over here for a while. But Joseph being the next to the, I want to say next to the youngest, Joseph, and Benjamin was the youngest, next to the youngest, they didn't go. But Joseph would be sent by Jacob with supplies to the brothers who were then out with the herds, and it was his job to say, when he came back, how are the brothers doing? Are they doing their job? And of course, he would come back and he would have to tell his father, they're not doing what they're supposed to be doing. They're supposed to be over here, but I found them way over here next to the city, you know, or over here doing something else, whatever. But he was giving a bad report. Now, that would be considered gossip. But that was something that was necessary because Jacob needed to know what they were doing. It's like sometimes, I don't know, do you have hall monitors at school where students used to have students be hall monitors at times, and they would have to, of course, they always got a bad name and a bad reputation, but they were given a job to do. And sometimes they had to tell on people for doing the wrong things. But because they weren't doing their job properly, Joseph needed to give that report to his father. Now, the Greek of the present covenant uses two different words for slander and gossip. It kind of splits it up. Kataleo, slander, and psithoritis. I can't pronounce it correctly. But it's gossip, but in the King James Version it says whisperers. Like the whisperers in Proverbs chapter, what did I say, 26 verse? Yeah, 20 and verse 22, that last one, the whisperers, okay? But the King James Version talks about whisperers. So the difference is a matter of degrees. Slander is like shooting somebody with a shotgun. You understand that. The shotgun pretty much need to be up close and personal. Where gossip is like shooting someone with a rifle that's got a scope on it. It's from long range, and you may not even know who does it. Who's spreading the gossip? Who's telling this story to cause this problem for the individual? So you see how that analogy goes? Sometimes people will be slandered in the newspaper. Somebody will put something in the newspaper. So-and-so is talking about this person. Political season's full of it, right? Yeah, all kinds of slanders and lies going on, and you kind of expect it there. Well, in the Old Testament, under the law of Moses, there was a law against the sordid use of bad reports. And that's where it becomes different, if it's a sordid usage. In other words, if there was a usage of a bad report where it's kind of twisted, some of the stuff is left out, it's really done to damage the individual or the individual's character. Now, Leviticus 19:16 from the English Standard Version, which kind of picks up on that difference, you shall not go around as a slanderer among your people, and you shall not stand up against the life of your neighbor. I am the Lord. Yeah, so it shows, it puts it on that same par as where it's doing something evil almost to take away the life of the individual. In Exodus 23:1, you shall not spread a false report. Is there a difference between a false report and a bad report? A bad report can be true, but a false report is typically always bad, okay? So you shall not spread a false report. You shall not join hands with a wicked man to be a malicious witness, okay? So somebody says, hey, I'll give you $50 if you say something bad about Danny. Yeah, help me ruin his character. No, that would be malicious. So you see how these things are kind of sorting out as we go down through this. Even in the Old Testament, that doesn't really make a distinction between the two. Now, there are also commandments against such in the church. 1 Peter chapter 2 and verse 1, so put away all malice, that's that maliciousness, right? And all deceit, and hypocrisy, and envy, and all slander. So when it does it, it's not saying it like, talking about something. It's the evil report trying to get something done to damage a person's reputation to achieve an end purpose. Okay? And again, somebody running for a political office might get someone to start a lie about someone. It's malicious. Shouldn't be doing it. Might be deceitful, hypocritical. Lots of times it's because of envy. But those are the things that move it away from being just a report, even a bad report, to something that is an evil thing. 2 Corinthians chapter 12 and verse 20, Paul says, for I fear, perhaps, when I come, I may find you not as I wish, and that you may find me not as I wish. Because Paul had planted that congregation there, and then these people had kind of turned away from Paul. And some of them were even saying, well, he's not even an apostle. Well, what was the problem? That perhaps there may be quarreling, jealousy, anger, hostility, slander, and if you look in the King James Version, it says backbitings, gossip, which is in the King James Version whisperings, conceit and disorder. So you see, it has that malicious side to all of these things. Now, how did Paul know about this? Somebody told him. But was that person gossiping, or is that person giving a report? Ah, somebody was giving a report. Was that somebody from the house of Chloe? If I got my names right in the book of 1 Corinthians. So Paul gets a report, and Paul says, this malicious stuff is going on. So again, it may be a matter of degrees, so we've got to be careful that we don't go beyond just giving a report and talking about things to getting to that point where we're actually trying to do harm to the individual. Does that make sense? Okay? Since God condemns gossiping, why do people continue to gossip? Okay? 3 John, chapter 1, for the digitally inclined, okay? Verses 9 and 10, just the heading of it, some people gossip out of pride. Pride. John says, I have written something to the church, but Diotrephes, who likes to put himself first, does not acknowledge our authority. Now, is that gossip or is that a report? That's a report, isn't it? So if I come, I will bring up what he is doing, talking wicked nonsense against us. Now, was that a report or was that gossip that this guy was doing?
Gossip.
That was gossip there, wasn't it? Because it was wicked nonsense. Probably slanderous against John. And not content with that, he refuses to welcome the brothers and also stops those who want to, and puts them out of the church. So he's doing something evil. And John says, I'm going to come, I'm going to take care of the problem. Okay? But he's reporting on what he's going to do and why things are going the way they are. But yeah, it was the pride of this man Diotrephes, who was an elder, apparently, in the church. But he ruled with an iron fist. And he didn't accept John's authority as an apostle. Do we accept John's authority as an apostle? Well, sure we do. If we accept the Bible, if we accept what John wrote as Scripture. Okay, number 2, viewing others as competitors. They use gossip to discredit their opponents. I didn't have this one up there. Yeah, but I'll go ahead and read it anyhow. It's easier to tear down someone else than it is to build yourself up. For some people that is. Why? Because they know themselves. They know something's broken inside, and because something's broken inside of them, they can't accept that somebody else might be whole. So they have to tear that person down. And of course, there's a certain amount of pride in being in the know. Okay? Being in the know. I know something you don't know. You know? Got a secret? Others gossip because of idleness. Idleness. 2 Thessalonians 3:11, for we hear that some among you walk in idleness, not busy at work, but busybodies. What does that busybodies mean? It means they're going around getting themselves involved in other people's business and then spreading it all over the community. Now, we all know the old adage, idle hands are the devil's workshop. But it goes from the idle hands to idle thoughts, idle words. And there it is. We need to find something to keep us busy. Now, if we're busy doing the things we should, we won't have time to do the things we shouldn't. At least that's what Grandma used to say, right? Number 3, which is really, number 3, because that number 2, that viewing others as competitors, that probably went with number 1 more than anything. But some gossip because they don't have the intelligence or vocabulary to say anything good and productive. We could say they just don't know any better. Proverbs 18:15, an intelligent heart acquires knowledge, and the ear of the wise seeks knowledge. Knowledge, not gossip, not dirt, but knowledge. And there's a difference, right? There's a difference. There's a difference between trying to learn something, learn the principles of things. Even if we hear gossip, can we look at it and distinguish principles out of that gossip? And then from those principles, continue on in our life to doing things good and well. Francis Bacon was a famous philosopher. He wrote this: great minds talk about ideas, average minds talk about events, small minds talk about other people. Now, that may be paraphrased a little bit, but think about it. Great minds talk about ideas, talk about concepts. Why is this like it is? Why is society. You know, why aren't we enforcing the 14th Amendment, the entirety of the 14th Amendment? History professor.
People are not informed or they don't understand.
Yeah, see, they don't know. Is this really demons driving all this out here in Oregon and California and Washington? How those are concepts we need to look at, and we need to look at the Bible and talk about. These are things we discussed last week to a degree. All right? Average minds talk about events. Well, what do we usually talk about? The weather, right? The weather. What are the two things you're talked about? You're always told, do not talk about these two things. The two most important things, don't talk about them. Now, who would say something like that? Small minds talk about other people. People with small minds don't want to talk about political ideas, religious ideas. They don't want to do it. Why? They don't know. There you go. The communication, the communication part of argumentation. How do we make an argument with propositions that say this is either true or this is false? Don't know how to do it. It's so much easier to talk about other people. It's so much easier to talk about gossip, to do the gossip thing. That makes sense? We want to be better people, don't we? The Bible not only condemns gossiping, it also gives us some practical suggestions for overcoming the sin of gossiping. Is gossiping a sin? Well, yeah. When it's that evil, that malicious, trying to hurt someone, destroy someone, kind of communication. If you cannot say anything good about someone, it's better to say nothing. Okay? Romans 12:10. Love one another with brotherly affection. Outdo one another in showing honor. That goes with the church. Sometimes it's difficult because people can be challenging. Challenging. I know. I'm there. I've been a challenge, and I've been challenged. Secondly, keep matters private. Proverbs 11:13, whoever goes about slandering reveals secrets, but he who is trustworthy in spirit keeps a thing covered. And I think that goes a lot more to the concept of somebody tells you something in confidence, keep it confident. Yeah. So how many times somebody's gone to my wife and said something, and she said, I didn't know that. Didn't your husband tell you? And then she asked me about it. They asked me not to say anything.
I had a lady tell me the other day she knows that she knew you the first time she met you, she could tell you anything you wouldn't say it.
I don't even tell her when it's a confidence.
You're not gonna try.
You know, it's just, you don't do it. And, you know, but that makes it really good because my wife now knows that she can tell me things and I'll not say anything. But there, and that's a part of that slandering, revealing the secrets. Somebody tells you something they don't want it published, don't publish it. Be trustworthy. Number 3, be careful what you say and who you say it to. Okay? Yeah, like I say, sometimes you've got to give a bad report. Sometimes you need to be able to talk to other people about what's going on. But you've got to be careful. 1 Corinthians 15:33, do not be deceived, bad company ruins good morals. What are you trying to say, Fred? What I'm trying to say is, if somebody's willing to listen to gossip, they're probably willing to share some gossip about you. So don't be surprised if that's what happens. They might even create some gossip. I love it. You know what's going on here lately in the political realm, where they've got people these investigations, they're going to before grand juries and whatever, and says, what happens when they get before the grand jury? They might sing. Yeah, well, singing's one thing, but they might even compose. They might make some stuff up to save their own skins. Be careful. Be careful. And that's just 3 little things there. Be careful. And if you have to, you can always fall back to the Rotarians and what they teach, but you'll have to look that up because I don't want to include it in here. The think principle. Okay. Conclusion, if I can get it up there. Oh! Karen, Jeremy, and I were traveling one time. We stopped at Biscuit Hill on the way back. I think it was on the way back from Ohio. From Daniels. And if you all know where Biscuit Hill is right up on the other side of Hydro Relay, up on top of the hill. It's a little truck stop. It's got a Sonic in it and all. So we stopped there to fuel up and get some food before coming on home. And there's a group of kids there from, I forget what town they were from, but they'd been over Cheyenne, Oklahoma for a debating contest, high school debating contest. And they were in line ahead of us, but notice the shirts that they had on. They all had matching t-shirts. And on the back of those shirts, it had "Gossip dies in the ears of the wise." Gossip dies in the ears of the wise. Hey, those kids were getting some early training, weren't they? So I stopped one of the girls and asked her, "Can I take a picture of that?" Got a picture of that. I've still got it on my cell phone, because that is so good. The Apostle Paul reveals how we are to conduct ourselves as Christians in Ephesians 4:29 through 5:1. He says, "Let no corrupting talk come out of your mouths, but only such as is good for building up as fits the occasion, that it may give grace to those who hear. And do not grieve the Holy Spirit of God, by whom you were sealed for the day of redemption. Let all bitterness and wrath and anger and clamor and slander be put away from you, along with all malice. Be kind to one another, tenderhearted, forgiving one another, as God in Christ forgave you." And chapter 5, verse 1, "Therefore be imitators of God as beloved children." So let's be mindful of our words, and especially the motives behind our communications. Hope that makes sense. I sure hope I can do a better job in the future. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your attention. Have a need. Let your request be made known. So stand and sing.